Chapter 9. The next day went by like a normal day for Windwasher. It almost made me forget about the horrible things I witnessed recently. Unfortunately, by the end of the day, the stress came back. Henry and I were just about to get ready for bed when we heard a knock at the door. "I wonder who that could be," Henry said. He went to answer the door, and I came with him. Charlie was there when we opened it. "There might have been another murder," he said immediately upon seeing us. Henry and I both looked at each other in shock. "Are you serious?" Henry asked. "Yes. I wouldn't come to you just to joke about something like that." "Where did this happen at?" "Supposedly, in the city, 99 Blakestone Street. Hector wanted me to tell the two of you, and maybe have you both join." Henry and I both waited to respond. The address Charlie stated put me in a deep thought, for it was the house I used to live at with my biological family. I was slightly afraid of going to investigate with Charlie and Hector after what we saw in the video of our last findings, but I was curious to find out if one of my family members had been killed. It worried me to think about one of them dying, even though I wasn't close to any of them. I took some relief from remembering a letter I received from them a few months ago saying that they were moving out. It made me think it was less likely to be one of them. "So are you two coming?" Charlie asked, getting impatient, waiting for our response. "Yes," I answered, and walked out the door. I assumed Henry was going to tag along too, but was shocked to hear him decline the offer. "I'm going to sit this one out," he said. I wasn't sure why he didn't want to help investigate, but I didn't want to question him about it right then. "Maybe Richard will go with you," he suggested. "All right," I responded. "Let's go, Thomas," Charlie said. I followed him to his car. I called Richard before I got into Charlie's car and told him about the situation. Right after I did, he appeared around the corner. "That was fast," I said to Richard as he approached me. "Yep," Richard responded. "I'm as fast as lightning." Or, the more likely option, you were already on your way here before I called. "That is a possibility," Richard stroked his chin. "I guess we will never know for sure." "No more time to waste," Charlie said as he got into the driver's seat. Richard and I hurried into the back seats. Then Charlie sped off. Once we left Windwasher, Richard made a random statement. "Last time me and Thomas got into a car and went to the city, we got kidnapped." "Is everything a joke to you?" Charlie asked in response. "He's actually not joking this time," I said. "We really did get kidnapped." "Damn, I'm sorry. How did that happen?" "Well, it was kinda Richard's fault." "How is it my fault?" Richard asked before I could continue the story. "Because you said Jaqual was your friend." "I thought he was." "And because of that, we ended up being held at gunpoint." "How was I supposed to know he would do that?" "Did you say his name is Jaqual?" Charlie suddenly asked. "Yes," I replied. "Do you know him?" "No, but I heard Hector briefly talking about a case involving someone named Jaqual." "Were you two going to investigate it?" "The murder case is a little more important right now, and our supervisor told us there wouldn't be much to investigate." "Is he going to jail?" "Not that I know of, but I don't know the full story." "He should, even if not for kidnapping, then maybe for holding us at gunpoint, and possibly shooting someone." "I'll let you know what I hear about it." Also, Jaqual did say he knew the foreman's family or something like that. Maybe you could interview him about that.
Maybe.
It took us around 5 minutes to get to the city, since it was only a little over a mile away from Windwasher. We arrived there shortly after we finished the conversation. It was just past 11, so there was not much activity going on outside. Charlie parked the car nearby the house where the new murder had happened. There were only 3 cop cars there, and 5 cops who were blocking off some of the area. Charlie got out of the car and walked up to one of the cops. Richard and I followed at a distance. "Glad to see you here, Charlie," one of the officers said. "You got here a little late, though. And where is Hector?" "He is doing another investigation right now, so he just sent me." "Fair enough. So what happened here?" "Well, we got a call from someone not too long ago saying someone has been stabbed to death. But at this point, I don't think it's true. We already searched in the yard and all through the house, but we didn't find anything. No blood, no signs of a struggle, nothing at all. It doesn't even seem like someone lives here." We decided to search through once more, and now we are waiting for the other officer to return. "All right, then." I was a little relieved that the cops didn't find any signs of a murder. That meant my old family was definitely safe, and already moved out. The officers who were searching the building came out a few seconds after Charlie stopped talking to the other officers. "It's all clear," one of them said. "We didn't find anyone inside, and we didn't find any dead bodies. It must have just been a prank call." "What kind of messed up person makes a prank call about someone dying?" Richard asked out loud and shook his head. "That's exactly what I was thinking," the officer that was talking to Charlie stated. "But whoever he is, when we find him, he is going to jail." He sighed. If only we could have just traced the caller to his location. He walked to his car. "Come on, boys. Let's head back to the station." "That was a short journey," Richard said after the police left. "Guess we have to head back now." He turned around and headed for the car. "Actually," Charlie started saying, "I'm gonna do my own search." "Why? The cops already did 2 searches and found nothing." "I know, but I'm thinking they didn't check everywhere." "What makes you think that?" "Because the attics aren't obvious to find in these houses. It's possible they missed checking there." Charlie walked up to the house. "So, are you 2 coming in or not?" "I think I should actually head back now." "What's the matter, Richard?" I asked him. "Are you scared?" I was partially joking with him. "Of course I'm not scared," he responded in a confident way. "I'll go in right now." He marched up to the door and opened it up without hesitation. He stood in the doorway with his arms crossed, waiting for me and Charlie to come in with him. Charlie closed the door behind himself when he entered. Richard and I stood silent for a few moments and looked around the room. The lights were off, and only the sound of a clock ticking could be heard. The air was slightly cooler than the air outside. It was refreshing, but strange, since it seemed like someone had air conditioning on. We could only see because of Charlie's flashlight, which Charlie had been using to look for a light switch. The one next to the door was torn out, leaving just a bunch of tangled wires. The only other source of light was from the streetlights seeping through the window. "Of course the lights are off," Richard said. "Whenever a situation like this happens, they always are to make things worse." Right after he said that, the lights flickered on. "I see the ghosts of this house are trying to mock me." "There's no ghosts in this house," I responded, "or any ghosts in general." "Then how did the lights come on?" "I just turned them on," Charlie replied from across the room. "I knew that," Richard scoffed. "I was just trying to scare Thomas." "You can't scare me by talking about something as fake as a ghost. I said to Richard. We started making our way to the attic, but while walking through the house, I felt like I had walked right into the past. It had only been 2 years since I was here, but I felt like 5 or 10. A wave of emotions hit me, and a tear dropped from my eye. I was able to keep my emotions wrapped up as we approached the attic. We had a problem getting the door to it opened at first, because it seemed to be jammed, and it was hard to push upwards to get it open. After a minute of trying, we finally got it opened. Dust rained down over top of us as a thick cloud. We all quickly covered our faces. Once most of it settled down, we made our way into the attic while coughing. Dang, Richard said. That was a lot of dust. Yeah, Charlie agreed. You would think nobody has been up here for decades. More like a dozen vacuum cleaners exploded. Luckily for us, there wasn't as much dust coating the rest of the attic, but there was a whole bunch of objects. Due to the fact that there wasn't much light, it looked as if some of the objects were people standing in the room. Coats that were hanging on coat racks, blankets over stacked objects, and even just normal fans. All appeared to be someone. From what I found out earlier, I was not thrilled to be here, and I could tell the other two weren't either. So what now? Richard asked. We start looking through everything, Charlie responded. He then took out his camera and started gently moving objects just to look for clues. Richard sighed as we both took out a flashlight from Charlie's bag and started searching with him. It didn't take very long for me to start feeling more annoyed of searching through stuff instead of feeling afraid. However, the feeling of not wanting to be here still remained. After what seemed like an hour of moving objects, I finally sat down on an old chair to take a break. Are we even supposed to be moving stuff if this is a crime scene? Richard suddenly asked. You asked that like an hour after we already started? I responded. Then Charlie chimed in. It wouldn't be the first time you've done so, he said to Richard as he continued to search. He was referring to the time Richard moved silverware into the sink at the foreman's house. Besides, I already recorded the whole room before we started moving stuff. Also, this doesn't really seem to be a crime scene at the moment. I'm honestly just looking to see if there's a bloody knife that has been stashed under something. Richard and Charlie continued to search for a few minutes before I suggested stopping. I think we should call it quits, I said. You're probably right, Charlie replied. He looked at his camera. 3 hours, I heard him say under his breath. He then took out his phone. What the hell? What's wrong? Richard asked. It's almost 2 o'clock. We've been here for 3 hours. Are you serious? I asked in disbelief. It doesn't feel like it's been that long at all. I know. Come on, let's go. Charlie left the attic and started heading down the stairs quickly. I can't believe I wasted 3 hours doing this, I heard him mumble to himself. He got far ahead of me, and Richard hadn't even left the room yet. I looked back and saw him slowly climbing down. He seemed very hesitant to leave. I just really feel like something is here, I heard him say. Richard, I called out to him. We've been searching for hours and found nothing. Plus, it's really late. We need to head back home anyways. Okay. He walked past me and headed down the stairs. I took one last look back before I did too. We caught up with Charlie and left the building. The air was frigid outside. It felt like it was the coldest night of the summer so far. I thought that might have been due to the fact that this was the latest I've stayed out, but it also seemed unusual for the temperatures to get this low. The three of us got into the car to head off to Windwasher, but there was a problem. For some reason, when Charlie started up his car, it instantly shut off and would not start up again. What's wrong? Richard asked. I don't know, Charlie responded. Maybe my battery died. He continued to try to start the car up, but it would not work. "Looks like your gas tank is empty." Richard pointed to the gas meter, which was on E. "No way. I had at least half a tank left." Charlie hit the horn, then got out of the car. "I guess you two will have to stay at my place for the night, unless you would rather walk all the way to Windwasher." "We can stay the night," I replied. "It's not that far of a walk, but I'm getting tired. I'll have my dad pick us up early in the morning." Charlie closed the door, and Richard and I got out of the car. We started walking to Charlie's house, which was only 1 block away from the house we investigated. I quickly realized that there were almost no cars on the streets. It almost seemed like the whole city was abandoned, especially with practically every light being off. Most strange of all, nearly all of the street lights were off too, even the traffic lights. "This is really sketchy," Richard said. "How come there's no cars out here? And why are the street lights off?" "I'm not sure," Charlie responded. "Perhaps there's been a small power outage. That may have been an explanation for the lights being out, but it did not explain why no cars were outside. Obviously, there would only be a very small amount of cars driving around at this time of night, if any at all. But there were always cars parked to the side of the streets. Not seeing any gave me a feeling that we were not supposed to be out here, or in this area. I wanted to get to Charlie's house quickly. I sped up my walking pace, and Charlie and Richard did the same. When we turned the corner to the street Charlie's house was on, we spotted a dark-colored car with dim headlights, slowly driving our direction from the end of the street. When the car approached Charlie's house, it came to a crawl. The three of us stopped walking and looked at each other with confused faces. The car slowly adjusted to angle towards us before it came to a complete stop. It was staring directly into our eyes. We did not know what to do at first, so we stood still, frozen from anticipation of the car's next move. It only took a few seconds for the car to start slowly driving again. It was coming straight towards us. "Let's go through the back alley," Charlie said quickly, as he ran across the street into the alley. Richard and I followed him, but kept looking at the car until we entered the alley. We arrived to the back of Charlie's house in less than a minute. I looked back to make sure we were not being followed, and Charlie went to open his back door. "Hey, Charlie," Richard called out. "A light just came on in your house." He pointed to the back window upstairs. Charlie backed up so that he could see. "What the hell?" Charlie said. Suddenly, the lights went off for a few seconds. Then they came back on. Now a silhouette of a person was standing in the window. Somehow, I could tell the person was staring at us. I felt my whole body shiver. The lights went off and on again, and the silhouette was gone. A few seconds later, there was banging on the door from the inside. We all were startled and jumped back. "I'm out of here," Richard said. Then he took off running. Charlie and I stood paralyzed in fear, staring at the door. It slowly started opening and emanated a faint brown gas, which I did not realize at the time. I finally broke free from my paralyzed state and started running. Charlie did not follow me. I looked back towards the house and barely caught a last glimpse of his face on the ground as he was dragged into the darkness of his house. I desperately wanted to go back to help, but I feared for my life. I did not stop running until I made it back to Windwasher.